Hello, my name is Mathias and welcome to the FPL Scope and the FPL eye test, formerly known as the Weekend Walkthrough, where I take a closer look at what happened in this weekend's Premier League matches from a fancy Premier League perspective. And Gameweek 6 was a lot more explosive than what we saw in Gameweek 5. A lot of popular FPL picks scored a lot of points, and several matches were really interesting in terms of how we can see the season moving forward. So let's just go straight into it with the first game, or one of the first games of the weekend. The 3 p.m. kickoff. We had 3 games. The biggest one of those games in terms of FPL was Man City against Nottingham Forest. And Man City have been sort of the most popular team to bring in players from because they've looked really, really good, as they always are. They've won 6 straight matches now with the win against Nottingham Forest. But in terms of FPL, this was kind of a letdown for especially those that brought in Alvarez for this game week in Game Week 6. Julian Alvarez has been fantastic so far this season. Scored 25 points the past 2 game weeks, or 23 points I think, the past 2 game weeks before this one in Game Week 5 and Game Week 4. So a lot of managers chose to sell Nick Jackson, which was a good decision, and then bought Julian Alvarez, which so far maybe doesn't look like the best decision because he was subbed off Alvarez after 55 minutes. But that was it was mostly due to Rodri being sent off kind of stupidly for Man City. But starting from the start of the match, really beautiful goal, the opening goal from Man City. Lovely pass. I think it was from Rodri actually, or someone overlapping Kyle Walker, who passed it in nicely, and then Phil Foden with a beautiful finish. Great goal from Foden, who finally proved that he can also get some extra points from goals. He's gotten some assists, but he's sort of been lackluster compared to Haaland and Alvarez the past few game weeks. But this time around, he was the one that shined. But Haaland wouldn't be denied in this game either. Scored a really nice goal. Another nice goal from Man City. Pretty poor defensively from Forest on this goal in particular, leaving Haaland completely open on the back post to just header it home. It happens more and more now. Haaland has become a much better header of the ball since he joined Man City, and once again scored with his head. Only needed 0.70 XG this time, or non-penalty expected goal moment this time, Haaland, to get that one goal that he got in the 6-0. Was it 6-0 win? 5-0 win. Last time, not 6-0. What? 3-1 win over West Ham. I'm thinking about the 6-0 win they had over Nottingham Forest last season. But this season, it only ended 2-0. Man City, they had 2-0 at the half. Looked like they were going to just keep going in the second half and score a couple more goals. But straight away, pretty much, or after 5 minutes in the second half, Rodri loses his cool, loses his head, runs or sort of like power walks up to Gibbs White, pushes him with both hands towards the neck, and that's not allowed. That's what we saw from Casemiro last season getting sent off. That was even more like he just held the collar of the Crystal Palace player Casemiro, but Rodri actually like shoved Gibbs White in the neck, and Gibbs White sort of falls down theatrically. But yeah, it's a red card. You could say it's harsh, I guess, but I think it's pretty straightforward that anytime you go towards the neck, it should be a red card, even though I know a lot of Arsenal fans are thinking about Barcelona from like 10, 12 years ago or whatever in the Champions League, getting away with that. But either way, I think it was Arsenal, I think so. But either way, one of the English teams against Barcelona. But either way, Rodri lost his cool. He showed that he's not the infallible, fantastic, undeniable midfielder that we thought he was. He's been getting so much praise, especially since he scored the winning goal in the Champions League. He scored a couple of great goals for Man City this season as well. Also been sort of like an FPL option, like a sneaky FPL option, because he's been getting a bit more forward. He said that he was going more forward because Gundogan has left and De Bruyne isn't there. But yeah, this was not the best outing for Rodri. He got sent off. Alvarez gets subbed off as a result of that. Doki gets subbed off as well pretty early after that. So yeah, it was pretty major for all the attacking assets from Man City that Rodri got sent off. Nottingham Forest sort of tried to get back into the game with one more man on the pitch, but they couldn't really get the goal. And the streak for Avani with a goal or an assist in every single Premier League game stops away against Man City, which isn't like the most surprising. But yeah, they had a couple of chances, Forest, to score. Avani in particular sort of lost his footing, lost the ball a couple of times when he was on his way through. Anthony Elanga once again looked pretty lively for Nottingham Forest, but couldn't really get anything going against Man City either. And Man City in the end sort of just like saved in a 2-0 win, which just decent for any team usually, but for Man City, we kind of expect more, especially from an FPL perspective. So I know a lot of Alvarez owners or new Alvarez owners are pretty disappointed. Speaking for myself, I was a pretty disappointed new Alvarez owner back in Gameweek 3 when he missed a couple big chances against Sheffield United, only got 2 points. But he looked good. He still looks good in my opinion, and I kept faith in him, and he scored those 14 pointer and then that 9 pointer. So I still think Alvarez is going to be a great pick. I still think he's going to be pretty nailed as well, but it's just you sort of have to make some changes when you're a man down and you need to defend the lead. So that's just what happens sometimes, and Alvarez sort of got dealt the damage now. I know a lot of people, speaking of Alvarez, and the next game, Luton against Wolves, I know a lot of people will be tempted to go from Alvarez to Carlton Morris, but I don't really think that's the most viable option. I think there are other things you should do with your FPL team, but yeah, sure. Morris has a double game week, and we can actually just move to the Luton-Wolverhampton game, because Luton actually had much better XG, as you can see, 2.17 compared to 0.59 from Wolverhampton. But that's also due to Wolverhampton getting a man sent off after 35 minutes. Bellegarde, who has looked pretty good in the opening of the Premier League so far, but sort of lost his cool when he was locked up with Tom Lockyer on the middle of the pitch. Lockyer kind of milked the whole thing. He sort of locked the legs of Bellegarde while they were both on the ground. Bellegarde tried to push him away with his feet, which is dumb because you can always interpret that as a kick, and Lockyer sort of rolls around and gets a red card for Bellegarde. So kind of inexperienced from Bellegarde, who's a pretty young, exciting player, and pretty experienced from Lockyer, who's a pretty heady veteran of the game. Got a man sent off. A lot of people thought maybe this is the time that Luton can actually keep a clean sheet. They're actually a man up at home against a pretty weak team in Wolverhampton, but nope. Pedro Neto happens. Pedro Neto is a fantastic player, and he actually stole the ball from Lockyer. He got a pass towards him, Neto. Lockyer tried to intervene, but he sort of just lost sight of Neto. Neto got past him, dribbled past another player, and smashed it top in the near corner into the top of the net, like Manuel Gabbiadini did back in the day. That's a reference for me and Kevin. But yeah, he Gabbiadini'd the ball into the net, as I like to say, blasted it near corner into the top of the net, and yeah, Neto once again showed why he's an interesting FPL pick. I think the thing holding him down, and as we'll get to with Crystal Palace away and Crystal Palace as well, the thing holding down the best player on a weak team is the fact that they are playing for a weak team, and we have so much money in the bank currently in FPL. Even with Salah, I feel like I have a team that's good enough to have pretty much big six players and Brighton and Newcastle players, and that's it. So yeah, it's hard to fit Neto into your team, but if you have to go down to that price point, 5.5, he's definitely a viable option still. He always looks really good and took the goal really well as well. Really nice goal. We know he can provide assists as well, and he's just looking at his best. So if Wolverhampton go down, I think Neto should definitely stay in the Premier League and potentially go to a bigger team as well. Even if Wolverhampton stay in the Premier League, I think he has top 6 potential. I've always thought this, and I was super hyped about him at the start of last season. He failed me miserably last season, but now it seems like he's actually back to his full fitness after some terrible luck with injuries, and he looks like a fantastic pick. But Luton wouldn't be denied even before the goal, I think. Carlton Morris had a really nice shot that almost went into the top corner. Not the best XG for that shot, but at the same time, it could have easily gone in. For Morris, you actually can't see him in the top 3 non-penalty expected goal involvement, but at the same time, I don't really take those numbers that seriously when it comes to one particular game, because Morris could have had a hat-trick in this game, to be quite honest. Yeah, that shot that almost went in, but that is pretty poor XG. But he also had another chance in the second half where he got a pass on the back post, or a cross on the back post, where he headed it. Also a decent attempt, but yeah, it wasn't meant to be. And then he also had, of course, the penalty goal. And this was super stupid, in my opinion. I'm pretty fed up with handball penalties in general. I feel like there should be really few instances there should be a handball penalty. Maybe we'll get to that in a different game eventually. Maybe that one was or maybe probably that should have been given in the other game that I'm going to talk about, Arsenal against Spurs. You already know. But in this instance, It's a cross from Kabore, who I have on my bench. I wish I started in this game week, but Kabore crosses it, and I can't remember exactly which player it was from Wolverhampton, but he stretches for the ball, makes a brilliant block with his foot, and then the ball bounces from his foot, his left foot, up to his right arm, which he has stretched out, because that's usually what you do when you stretch out your foot. When you do sudden movements, you use your arms, like you move your arms. It's totally natural. So people say, oh, it's an unnatural position, but no, it's totally natural. If you look at, for example, 400-meter hurdles or 110-meter hurdles or whatever, that's sport where you run and then you jump over hurdles. They don't run with their hands down the side. Like they use their arms to jump. Like it's natural to use your arms when you move. And yeah, I think handball penalties should be really seldom given, or like not given that much, and especially this one where it bounces off him and then into his own arm. And it's the same VAR ref that didn't give a penalty when Mathias Jensen did this against Bournemouth last season, which was also a team managed by Gary O'Neill. And I feel really bad for Wolverhampton in general, because they've had so many referee decisions against them. We all remember that Onana thing in Gameweek 1 as well. And Gary O'Neill in particular has had so much bad luck when it comes to referee decisions, and we still don't get that many good referee decisions, even with VAR. So just remains to be seen. We have another horrendous VAR thing coming up in the fourth match that you can see on this table. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been against VAR, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask when it comes to how it's implemented so far. But I don't know. I'm pretty fed up with it, and I think Wolverhampton fans are pretty fed up with it as well. But Luton in the end should have probably won this game. As you can see from the expected goals, they had a couple of nice chances as well. They had another goal disallowed right at the end. Some decent chances. Morris definitely looks like a decent pick, but at the same time, this was the game for Morris to have a big score. He did get a goal and he did get 3 bonus. But Wolves at home, with playing with one man more for an hour of the game, an hour plus even, 70 minutes potentially with the extra time, you expect them to score more than one goal, to be honest, against Wolverhampton. But and the 1-1, the first point for Luton in the Premier League, which is good for them. I think they'll be better at home than they are away. But at the same time, still not looking that good. Yeah, they drew 1-1 against Wolves, and that's pretty much it from that game. And then we're going to be pretty brief with this game as well. Crystal Palace against Fulham. Yeah, just a pretty great match from Sam Johnson in the Crystal Palace goal. I think Fulham actually should get more credit than what the XG is telling us here. 0.59 is not that much. And in that number, or not counted in that number, is a pretty huge chance where Jimenez has a perfect chance to cross it to Andreas Pereira, who's completely open on the back post, but the pass is just a bit unprecise from Jimenez, who didn't have the best game again. And Andreas doesn't get to finish. And when you don't get to finish a chance, it counts as 0.00 XG, even though it was a pretty big chance. So it doesn't even get counted as like a big chance in like the big chance statistic either. So you can't really take statistics for like face value. It doesn't always tell the full picture, and that's why we have this segment, the FPL eye test. You always have the discussion eye test versus underlying stats, and I think you sort of need a mixture, but especially understanding why the numbers come out as they do, I think is pretty important. I think that's why I do these videos, to sort of talk about how the numbers are kind of lying to you and how they are sort of showing some signs as well of which players are good and bad. And that's what you can see with Eze, because 0.56, not the best XGI, but it's decent XGI. And Eze, that's pretty much him every single game for Crystal Palace. He's always at the peak in terms of the non-penalty expected goal moment for Crystal Palace, because he's involved in everything that Crystal Palace do. He had a pretty nice shot that went just wide from just outside the box in the first half, I think. And then in the second half, he had a brilliant pass through to, it wasn't even Edward, it was someone else who had a pretty big chance. So yeah, Eze, Mateta, it was Mateta who got the chance in the second half. So Eze is pretty much involved in everything that Crystal Palace do, but Crystal Palace can't really produce that much. They're not the best team. They're certainly lacking Michael Olise, who's out with an injury still, and they just don't look that good offensively. So I don't know about Eze. He had that one good game a couple games ago against Wolverhampton, which is a team that is really easy to create chances against. But in general, I feel like Eze is sort of a risky pick. He does have some decent fixtures coming up, not necessarily the next game week, but from game week 8 onwards, I think he has pretty good fixtures. But yeah, without Olise in the team, I think he's going to be a bit limited in terms of FPL. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're considering SA. But he's still a fantastic player, though. Don't get me wrong. If he played for a better team, or a better offensive team at least, he would be a great FPL pick. But defensively, again, Crystal Palace look good. Joachim Andersen, 0.44 non-penalty expected goal involvement. He is pretty involved offensively as well when it comes to set pieces. Really solid defender, potentially the best defender outside the Big Six or Big Seven with Newcastle, because Newcastle have some pretty good defenders as well, as we'll get to. But yeah, he looks pretty good. In terms of Fulham, not that many players that stand out. Andreas Pereira looks pretty good. And I think, like I said, I've said a couple of weeks, I think Vinicius on the bench is a better striker than Raul Jimenez at this point. So yeah. But yeah, finally, Fulham are actually the better team in the game. I felt like Fulham should have won this match, or if this match had a winner, or should have had a winner, it should have been Fulham, I think. And that's pretty much the opposite of what happens with Fulham usually, because Fulham have had, I think this is their 9th point so far this season. And all of the 8 points that they've had before this are pretty lucky, to be honest. But in this match, if they had Mitrovic up front, they definitely would have scored. They had another, there was another pretty good heading chance, I think, from Jimenez as well, where Mitrovic easily could have scored. So I think if Mitrovic was still at Fulham, this would have been a win for Fulham. But without Mitrovic, Fulham are going to struggle, even though they're still keeping a couple clean sheets. Leno again with a clean sheet and the 3 bonus points, I think. Leno's been the best goalkeeper in the league, basically, and the best goalkeeper in FPL so far. So maybe he is still the person to go with. I had him as my keeper in my weekly wildcard draft, and I've had him the last 2 weeks for my suggested wildcard draft for you guys. And I think he's going to keep his place as well, even though Fulham has some tough fixtures. Him and Areola have, which is the other goalkeeper I have in the weekly wildcard draft, are a pretty good rotation pair as well. So yeah, Leno's still a really good FPL pick, but apart from that, this match was kind of boring. Clean sheets for Johnson and Leno, for those of you that have them. Blanks for Eze and any other offensive player if you have them from these teams. Then we have Brentford against Everton, which was kind of surprising in terms of what we expected going into the game, because Brentford have looked really good so far and Everton have looked really poor so far this season. But I think the numbers have sort of been lying to you a bit as well, and sort of the circumstances that have changed the last few weeks have made these teams actually a lot closer when it comes to quality than what it looked like for the first 4 or 5 game weeks. So Everton have been pretty unlucky so far this season. I think they've created a lot of chances against the likes of Fulham and stuff. They created a lot of chances, but they didn't really get the points, same as they did against Wolverhampton as well. So I don't think Everton are going to go down. I know a lot of people have them as one of the favorites to go down, but I think they have too much quality in their squad, and they show that once again, especially James Tarkowski, who got an assist for the opening goal and also got a goal of his own to give Everton the lead in the second half. But yeah, the opening goal was after a set piece. The ball gets crossed back into the box again. Tarkowski headers it down to Doucouré, who is taking up really good positions in the box and is actually a really interesting FPL pick as well, in my view, if you want to go to that 5.5 price range. But yeah, Tarkowski headers it down to Doucouré, scores a really nice shot, half volley attempt from Doucouré. He gets another pretty good half volley attempt that hits the bar right after that, Doucouré, so he easily could have been a 2-goal scorer again this time around. So I think Doucouré is a decent pick. Tarkowski as well. Everton have 2 really easy fixtures coming up. They have Luton at home in game week 7, and then they have Bournemouth at home in game week 8. So I think, especially if you're wildcarding game week 9, I think Everton players should definitely be on your mind. And I know a lot of you are probably still stuck with Pickford, and once again, he didn't keep a clean sheet because Brentford scored on pretty much their first chance of the game, pretty much, which was also where we come to this stupid VAR decision that I'm going to talk about. But yeah, basically the goal was, or one of the ball was in the midfield, was headed forward to Mbeumo, who clearly headers it forwards towards Jan Wissa. Wissa doesn't get control of the ball, and the ball gets sort of cleared out again. Then the ball is passed out to Mathias Jensen, who blasts it from pretty wide out. Pickford tries to save it, but instead he sort of pushes it beyond Tarkowski, who probably would have saved it behind him, and it hits the post and goes in. Typical unlucky Everton, a lot of people thought. But yeah, for some reason VAR thinks they should check if it's offside on Jan Wissa when the ball is passed from midfield, even though the ball clearly was passed again from Mbeumo when Wissa was definitely onside when Mbeumo hits the ball. So they check the offside before they check the offside, which is like barely offside from like the heel of Wissa running back from attack. But after they checked the offside, luckily for the integrity of the game, to be honest, they actually check again to see if Mbeumo touches the ball, and of course he touched the ball. It was clear from the get-go. I think even the commentator says Mbeumo headers it on, and it was really clear that Mbeumo headed it as well. Like the defender was close-ish, but like not even close to hitting the ball. So yeah, 2 minutes wasted with VAR. At least they got the decision right. But yeah, that was the 1-1 goal for Brentford. Then in the second half, Tarkowski scores from a corner. Once again, a goal made in Burnley, but sort of also in Brentford in terms of Tarkowski, who's played there as well. Great cross from McNeil and on the corner, and Tarkowski headers it home. And again, got to put some question marks when it comes to Mark Flecken, who is not looking like a good goalkeeper so far. I know he's been good in the Bundesliga, but he is not finding his footing in the Premier League whatsoever. I have him in my own FPL team, so I'm pretty frustrated with him at this point. I've seen a lot of people talk about him as like a good wildcard potential option, but I don't think him or Brentford are really a team to target going forward. And more worryingly, towards the end of the game for Mbeumo owners such as myself, Mbeumo was actually put as a wing back towards the end of the match, which is not good for his Premier League or FPL production. In different games, he's actually been put up front sometimes in the 3-5-2 system, but now he played as a wing back, which is not good for Brentford. And I think Brentford are sort of, as I've written there, starting to miss their key players. They had obviously Ivan Toney out from the start of the season. They still look good because they are pretty much like a system team that can create chances even without like their focal point and star player. But then they got the injury to Rico Henry, and he's so pivotal to what Brentford do going forward. He's also a super underrated player in general. So I feel like Brentford are just a way worse team now, especially without Toney. Like they managed to stay on course without Toney for a while, but now with Toney out and then also Henry out, and also Kevin Schade was out for this match as well. He's been really impressive at the start of the season. With all those players out, it's starting to look a bit tougher for Brentford. When it comes to Mbeumo, though, he did have a pretty decent chance to score, but instead of shooting it, he tried to pass it to the back post where Lewis Potter came in full speed. But Potter couldn't really get a proper finish in there, so I don't really understand 0.25. It felt like a bigger chance than 0.25 for Lewis Potter, and that's not even just the chance by itself, so I don't really understand why it was such a low XG chance, because that could have easily been like an easy tap-in for Lewis Potter at the back post, but yeah, I guess the angle was too tight, because when he hit the ball, I guess the angle was too tight. But he was, if he had made his run a bit better, or if the pass from him was like slightly slower, that's an easy goal for Brentford and an assist for Mbeumo, who could have shot it and scored himself as well. So Mbeumo still looks like a decent pick, but Brentford are looking worse, and Mbeumo is not looking as good either. So he is someone that I'm a bit more unsure about now, after being pretty sure about him up until this point. So yeah, keep that in mind. Then we also have Calvert-Lewin came on, got his goal, and I also have to bring up a different player that is always impressing me when I watch Everton, and that is James Garner, who was a Man United academy product. Man United sold him. Ten Hag actually sold him pretty early on when he took over. And I think that's a massive mistake, because you can see Man United now playing with 4 central midfielders, and I think Garner is pretty much better than everyone apart from Fernandes, obviously, and potentially Casemiro. You gotta still give it to Casemiro, even though he looks a bit worse this season. But yeah, Garner, fantastic. For the third goal, runs up and wins the ball really high up in the pitch. Kind of just like, I don't know how to explain it. Just surprises the Brentford defender, wins the ball from him, and then a beautiful through ball to Calvert-Lewin, who beautifully scores as well. The ball did hit Flecken, who tried to save it, almost saved it, but Calvert-Lewin got his goal. His first goal of the season, and that must feel really good for Calvert-Lewin, who looked really good when he came on. I also think Beto actually looked pretty good in the first half as well for Everton. He also had another pretty huge chance where he was sort of through on goal, was kind of pressured by the defender. It was kind of a tight angle, but he chipped the goalkeeper, and I thought it was going in, but it went just wide. So yeah, I think Beto and Calvert-Lewin are 2 really good strikers for Everton when they are fit and ready to play. But it doesn't seem like Sean Dyche is going to play them together. Maybe if it changes his tactics a bit, but yeah, it seems like Calvert-Lewin is going to be like the main guy going forward. Maybe, I don't know, Beto still looks good as well, so maybe Calvert-Lewin, because of his injury concerns, maybe it's sort of like a Isak Wilson type of deal, where Isak starts most games and then Calvert-Lewin comes on. But even that is changing with Newcastle, as we'll get to. But yeah, pretty deserved win for Everton in the end. Their first win of the season away from home against Brentford. We've seen this from Everton last season as well when they destroyed Brighton 5-1. They can show up with these types of performances because they have a really good squad. Like I think their squad is super underrated and they have so many great players there, Everton. I don't think they will be a threat for relegation, and huge sigh of relief for Sean Dyche as well. He's going to keep his job a little bit longer now after that result, but they still, the two next upcoming matches, they really need to prove that this was not just a one-off performance. They can actually do it against Luton and Bournemouth as well, because they could easily win those games at home. But yeah, a huge win for Everton and all the Everton fans, including Kevin, my co-host on the FPL Scope podcast. Then we have the match between Burnley and Man United, and basically the one thing to talk about here is, or the main thing to talk about here is the one goal that we had in the match from Man United. Just a beautiful goal in general. Johnny Evans all of a sudden turning into Prime Beckenbauer, as was FPL Frog said on Twitter after leaving the shackles of Dean Smith. Brilliant pass from Johnny Evans. Passed it through to Fernandes, who played on the right more this game. Played further up Fernandes and looked more threatening. Great pass from Johnny Evans, and then a pretty much equally as beautiful, or potentially even more beautiful, finish from Bruno Fernandes. And yeah, that just shows the quality of Bruno Fernandes and why he's such an amazing player and why he's a top 10 player in the league, clearly, for me. So a great goal for Man United, but this game was pretty even. They had some parts of the game. There were some parts of the game where Burnley looked the better side. There were some parts of the game where Man United looked the better side. But the goal in the end proved to be the difference. And then once again, sort of like the who's the better midfielder, Fernandes or Rashford, it shifts once again. Last week it looked like Rashford was the better player, and it looked like Burnley would be a good fixture for him. But Rashford actually had a pretty poor game. Didn't look really all that good in this match. While Bruno Fernandes looked more offensive this game and had the beautiful goal as well to go along with it. Also got to mention the third guy there you can see on the screen, top 3 non-penalty expected goal moments. Hannibal Meshbury. I think Meshbury looked really good. I think he's been a great addition to Man United's attack. He looked way better than the McTominay, so I think definitely Meshbury should keep his place. Not really that FPL relevant, but he was also kind of like high up in the pitch when they tried to press and win the ball as well. Sorry about that voice crack. But yeah, Meshbury looks good. So Man United ekes out a win once again. Kind of underrated how they keep getting points from not the best performances, Man United. And they did it once again here against Burnley. Burnley, there's just a little bit missing from them. Obviously, they're missing Lyle Foster, who got sent off, was suspended for 3 games after he elbowed, who was it, Ryan Yates from Nottingham Forest last game week. They're missing him, Burnley, and they are creating chances. They had some decent chances to score. Ramsey passed Amdoni, who hit the post. That was a huge chance. And they created some other decent chances as well, but they just couldn't put it past Onana, who finally got a clean sheet again after conceding so many goals since that opening game week 1 huge haul. He hasn't really gotten anything in FPL, but this time around he actually got some points. And that also goes for Bruno Fernandes, who got some bonus points as well to go along with it. So anyone that kept Bruno Fernandes, congrats to you as well. Good game from him, not so good game from Rashford. So if you have Bruno Fernandes and Rashford still, I don't think both of them are viable, because as you can see, Man United basically score 1 or 2 goals per game. That's it. So you have to be really lucky for both Fernandes and Rashford to score at the same time, and especially in a game like this where we got so many players in midfield that score so many points. It just kind of proves that having both Man United midfielders is not the best. But I get why it's hard to sell one of them, because they keep changing who's looking better out of the two. So yeah, but you sort of just have to pick your favorite, whether it is from the financial point where you need the extra money that you can get from Bruno Fernandes, or if you feel like Rashford is going to be the more viable option going forward because he's playing more offensively and is more secure in like an offensive role for Man United than Bruno Fernandes. You sort of just have to stick with that decision and keep one of them, I guess, rather than having both, in my opinion. You could also, I guess, sell both, but Man United still have some decent fixtures, so maybe not for next game week. But yeah, I would definitely look to chip out Man United assets still, because I still don't think they look that good. But they still got the 3 points, so great for them, I guess. Then we have a different team that looks a lot better, and that is Brighton. Even though they conceded first, which was a really stupid goal to concede. Verbruggen, the new goalkeeper, Bart Verbruggen, got the chance in goal this time around, and he sort of wasted it pretty early. Just passed the ball, or Ryan Christie from Bournemouth actually pressured him. Verbruggen passes it straight to Solanke, who scores pretty easily from pretty far out. And yeah, Solanke, I think it was his third goal this season. Solanke is a pretty underrated striker. He is not the best finisher of the ball, but what he does apart from that is really, really good. So I really rate Solanke, but as an FPL pick, like I've said, going for players from Bournemouth, Wolverhampton, Crystal Palace and stuff, it's just not that viable anymore because you have so much money to spend and you have so many midfielders to choose from. So yeah, but gotta give Solanke some props for being a decent striker and basically taking his chance this time around and scoring. But Brighton wouldn't be denied. They scored an equalizer in the first half, a cross from Billy Gilmore, I think, which was headed in to his own net from Milos Kerkez, the promising left back from Bournemouth. And then in the second half, Brighton basically subbed on their best players, Ansu Fati, who's going to be a really good player for Brighton, and Mitoma, who we know is a really good player for Brighton. He is fantastic. And Mitoma scored 2 goals, 2 really nice goals as well. One of them was sort of orchestrated by Ansu Fati. He got it on the wing, passed it inside to Mahmoud Dahoud, who did like a really nice sort of like flick pass to Mitoma, who just took it in stride and shot it easily into the goal. And then the third goal was a really nice cross from Purvis Estepinian, who got an attacking return once again. So even though, yet again, Brighton conceded 1 goal, but yet again, Estepinian also got some attacking returns. So yeah, as you can see, once again, Estepinian is also among the top 3 for non-penalty expected goal moments. He keeps doing that because he is so offensive in this team. And like I say, pretty much every single video, just start him every game, pretty much, because Brighton are that good and Estepinian is that good. And the same goes for Mitoma, to be honest. He can score also mostly against anyone, but especially in these matches against the easier opposition, Bournemouth and stuff. He's definitely a good pick. And as you can see from this game, even though he didn't start, he got 2 goals. So yeah, I think Mitoma is definitely a great pick from Gameweek 10 onwards when Brighton have much easier fixtures. And Estepinian is also another fantastic FPL pick that you should just keep in your team. Ansu Fati is definitely someone to pay attention to because he has so much talent. We know how good Fati has been in the past before his injuries. And I think playing under De Zerbi for Brighton is going to do him a lot of good. When it comes to Bournemouth, pretty much you just have to look away from them. You should probably target them if you have players from a team that faces Bournemouth, and look at the fixture ticker for when you should get players that play Bournemouth pretty soon, because Bournemouth are susceptible to concede a lot of goals. But Brighton as well, we know they can score 3 goals against anyone, so not really the biggest blemish for Bournemouth. Kind of expect a result there with 3-1 for Brighton, but after going down 1-0, it's nice from Brighton to show some resolve and get back into the game. Speaking of getting back into the game, we have the match between Arsenal and Spurs, maybe the standout match of this weekend, and it was a pretty fun match to watch as well. But from the start of the match, it looked like Arsenal were just going to be like showing them who's boss, showing Spurs that, yeah, you've had a good start to the season, but Arsenal are still Arsenal. Arsenal is still the team that sort of pushed Man City to at least gave them a bit of a competition for the title last season. But yeah, Arsenal looked the way better team at the start of the game. Bukayo Saka, once again, absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's been getting so much praise from everyone else, and I've sort of been like, contrarian as I am, sort of been like, is he really that good? Is he so super hyped? Does he deserve all that hype? Or is he just like a really good player? But Saka is just an outstanding player. He's one of the best players in the world at this point. So yeah, I'm not going to say anything bad about Saka ever again, because once again, he scored points for me in FPL as well, which is always nice. And yeah, I think Saka is just like an easy player to keep. And I think Arsenal players in general, offensively, when they get really good matches from Gameweek 9, Gameweek 11 onwards, I think you could easily double up on Arsenal, because they are a really good team that can dominate against any team, as they showed in the first 40 minutes or 35 minutes at least against Spurs. But then for some reason they sort of let off the pressure on Spurs and sort of let Spurs back into the game, and Spurs took their chance before the half and scored. Beautiful setup from Maddison. It was a big chance from Brendan Johnson at first, and even before that, I think, was that the same chance? But yeah, at some point Brendan Johnson had another big chance where he shot it, and David Raya showed his value and had a fantastic save. That's one of the other points I was going to make here. Arsenal putting Raya and Fabio Vieira in the starting lineup was much needed, because they are just a lot better players than Ramsdale and Havertz. But yeah, we'll get to what happened in the second half in terms of the downgrade. But yeah, Son took his chance well after Maddison sort of went past his player on the side, passed it into Son, who scored in amongst like 3 Arsenal defenders, hit the post and in. But we know Son, when he plays as a striker, he's going to be pretty lethal, and he showed why people bought him in last game week. That was sort of like a less promising match for Son in a way, even though it was Sheffield United, as we'll get to, are not the best team. But Son actually thrives when he sort of has more space to roam and stuff. So playing against the low block team like Sheffield United, like I warned a lot of people before last game week, it's maybe not as easy as it seems. But the value of Son is the fact that he can score against the likes of Arsenal and potentially against the likes of Liverpool, who they play next week. So that's why he is still a really good value pick. And he proved that in this game. But yeah, second half, Declan Rice had to be taken off because of a calf issue, and that was a major downgrade for Arsenal because they had to sub him off for Jorginho, who, yeah, we'll get to Jorginho. But at the same time, they also I think Mikel Arteta felt like he needed more physicality with Declan Rice going out for Jorginho. So he took out Fabio Vieira, who's a pretty weak physical player, and put in Havertz as well. So a massive downgrade at the half, as I've written there in the notes. Declan Rice and Fabio Vieira down to Havertz and Jorginho, which proved to be fatal. But even still, they took the lead again in the second half. They got a penalty. It was the second half. Romero, handball. And like I said earlier in this video, this was probably one of those instances where handball is sort of correct. It was sort of like he did move and he doesn't handball on purpose there, Romero, but I don't know. It's kind of like an awkward movement, and the ball was also heading towards the goal, and I think that's another factor into this as well. It's just too big of a chance, and yeah, that's one of the instances where you could give handball, I think. So I think the penalty is fair enough, but yeah, even like someone with the same thoughts as me in terms of never or almost never giving handball penalties, even that one could potentially not be a penalty, but I think that's a penalty. That's sort of a line you can't cross when you sort of handball it kind of awkwardly right in front of the goal. It's kind of different, but yeah, penalty for Bukayo Saka, who didn't miss it this time, just shot it straight down the middle. The goalkeeper Vicario went to his right, and yeah, easy goal for Saka, who celebrated both times with the James Maddison darts celebration. But yeah. Goal for Arsenal, and it looked once again like Arsenal were going to be taking command of the game, but pretty soon after the goal, the terrible thing happened where Jorginho, however you say it, you don't even deserve to have your name pronounced correctly after this game, has the ball in the middle of the pitch. He's had the ball in the middle of the pitch several times before. We know he's a really experienced player. We know that he has been thriving in this role for Napoli and Italy and Chelsea in the past, but just takes way too much time with the ball and loses it. Maddison takes it, and of course, Son is the one to go along with Maddison. Maddison passes it nicely to Son, who scores easily. Kind of what you expect when Maddison has a decent chance to pass and Son has a decent chance to shoot. It's most likely going to be a goal, and that's the worth of Son and Maddison. So even though Spurs didn't look the best and didn't really create too many chances at the start of the game, it sort of looked like Arsenal were the better team. We know how lethal both Son and Maddison can be, and that's why they are such good FPL picks. But yeah, that was 2-2. Arsenal did have some chances. They did pile on the pressure. Maddison actually had a little injury scare and had to be subbed off. Son also had to be subbed off. I don't know if that was fitness related or if it was something else, but he also had to come off. And Arsenal kind of struggled, Spurs kind of struggled to take a hold of the game. But I think we also, once again, got to mention Yves Bissouma, who I've been so impressed by this season. Once again, bossed the midfield, had several nice instances where he won the ball. He shouldered away Saliba in the first half. He shouldered away Havertz in the second half, despite his pretty small stature. So it proves that you don't have to be the biggest guy to be really good physically as well. So yeah, Bissouma looks really good. Not from FPL perspective necessarily, but yeah, as a player, he looks really good. And Spurs, in the end, managed to get a 2-2 draw, which I think they should be happy with. Arsenal should be pretty disappointed that they conceded some pretty silly goals, to be honest. Even the first goal they could have defended better, but especially the second goal from Jorginho, just losing the ball in a pretty dangerous position, and yeah, easily punished by Spurs. So that was pretty much the North London derby, 2-2 there. Two really good teams who are going to be among the top 4 or 5 best teams in the league this season. Next up, we have a team that is not going to be among the top 4 or 5 teams this season, and that is Chelsea, who once again, especially from an FPL perspective, just did terribly once again. As you can see, Chilwell, for the second time in a row, he was benched. For the second time in a row, he got subbed on. And for the second time in a row, or second game in a row, he got a yellow card and 0 points in total. So yeah, I made the decision to start Chilwell over Kabore right before the deadline, and I really regret it because yeah, you just can't rely on Chilwell. But Chilwell, to be fair to him, he had a really big chance to score as well in the second half. Even though Chelsea were down to 10 men at that point. But yeah, let's go more in chronological order when it comes to this game. But or not really. Let's just go there. Gusto, the big talking point of the match is Malo Gusto, who got sent off as well. Another, like the fourth most popular, I guess, fancy option. Even he failed. He got a red card and got sent off, got minus points. So yeah, Chilwell, as I said, benched, 0 points. Sterling once again blanked. Sterling once again actually looked decent. He had an assist disallowed. He crossed it to Disasi, but Disasi was slightly offside. Really nice header, by the way, from Disasi, but he was just a little bit offside. Not slightly offside. He was pretty clearly offside, and only a late run backwards from Ole Watkins could have made it onside. But yeah, decent finish from Disasi. Really good cross from Sterling, who looked good once again. He also came through on the right-hand side in, I think it was the second half, where he had a decent chance one-on-one with Emi Martinez, but it's really hard to score against Emi Martinez one-on-one. And the shot from Sterling wasn't the best either, but yeah. And then finally we have Nick Jackson, or Miss Jackson. That's not a typo, it says M Jackson there, and that's Miss Jackson. Obviously the Outcast song is the reference, but yeah, he just keeps missing chances. And once again, top for non-penalty expected goal moment for Chelsea. Once again, 1 point because he got a yellow card. That's his 5th yellow card of the season, so he is suspended for the next game, which I think, to be honest, is the League Cup game. I think that's still the rules, so I still think he's actually back for the next game in FPL, but surely now the remaining FPL owners of Nicholas Jackson are going to sell him because yeah, he's just been letting people down every single game pretty much since he scored that 1 goal against Luton. So yeah, in total, in the last 2 games against Bournemouth, I think last week, and Aston Villa this week, Chilwell, Sterling, Jackson, that trio combined got 6 points in total. In total from 2 matches, those 3 players, which is just absolutely terrible. So yeah, especially with Gusto also being sent off and now being out for at least the 2 league games. I think it's the 1 League Cup game and then 2 league games. He's going to be out until Reece James is back. Don't know what Chelsea are going to do with their right back situation. Maybe they change their defense around. So maybe Chilwell actually gets to start next time. But even still, it's just time to let go of the Chelsea assets because they're just not a good team at the moment, and they need to grow up and be a more experienced side, as Pochettino said after the game. But yeah, Aston Villa took their chance with Watkins in the second half. Really nice from Diaby once again. Got the ball, ran just guns blazing towards the opposition goal as he usually does. Passed it nicely through to Watkins. Watkins had to shoot twice because Colwell did a really good block on the first attempt. But then second attempt, Watkins gets the ball back and just shoots it between the feet of Sanchez, who again showed why he's not really a starting goalkeeper, especially for a top 6 side in this league. He easily could have saved that goal as well. I saw Levi Colwell was pretty upset with that from his former teammate at Brighton, current teammate at Chelsea, Sanchez, who did have, I think, 6 saves potentially in this game. I can't remember exactly the numbers, but yeah, he had a couple of saves, Sanchez, but he also conceded once again. Chelsea keep conceding goals. They did keep a clean sheet last time against Bournemouth, but yeah, in terms of FPL options, it just looks like you should sell or stay, or especially stay away, but probably sell most of your Chelsea assets. Even though Sterling is still looking decent every match, kind of losing patience with him as well. I'm going to make a decision whether I keep him or not in my own team. But Chilwell is definitely getting dropped, as he is with the Chelsea team. And yeah, I luckily never had Jackson this season, but I would also drop him even if he is ready to play the next game, if he is suspended in the League Cup game rather than the league game. But yeah. Aston Villa, however, Diaby didn't get his assist for the goal because Watkins needed 2 shots to score. But Diaby, once again, Still think he looks lively. Still think he is probably one of my favorite picks to have from potentially even next game week where they play Brighton. But especially from game week 8 onwards, when they have really good fixtures, I think the Albe is going to be a must in most teams, to be honest. And I'm definitely looking to bring him in. When it comes to defensive players from Aston Villa, not really too many chances in terms of Digne and Cash. Cash is usually pretty good when it comes to non-penalty expected goal involvement, but this time around didn't have the best numbers in that regard. Still don't really know with Moreno coming back to full fitness if that's going to affect how Cash plays, but I still think Matty Cash is someone you could potentially get in FPL as well. Pau Torres is also someone you should consider because he's going to have a lot of passes, especially passes into the final third as well, which could lead to goals eventually. Could be one of those Johnny Evans type of passes that he has, Pau Torres, because he's a really good ball playing centre back. So I think Pau Torres is actually a sneaky good pick compared to the more expensive Matty Cash and Moreno. He could be a good defensive pick for Aston Villa when they have those good fixtures. So he's also a nice option, I think. And Watkins kind of trolls FPL managers again. He was a really popular player from Game Week 1, and he did score consistently. He has scored pretty consistently in terms of points, but he hasn't really scored any goals. But now that no one has Watkins pretty much anymore in FPL, he finally decides to score. Really well taken shot, the second shot, even though Sanchez probably should have saved it. But yeah, Watkins is also a definite option when Aston Villa got those easy fixtures. So yeah, Aston Villa is definitely a team you can target when their fixtures turns around. I definitely think you should have at least the LB and potentially a defender and potentially even Watkins on your wildcard if you're wildcarding Game Week 9 or Game Week 10. And then we have, speaking of wildcarding Game Week 9 and Game Week 10, one of the biggest reasons to wildcard, potentially even in Game Week 8, is Mohamed Salah, who once again scored against West Ham. Got the opening goal from a penalty, but the very start of the game, West Ham actually should have taken the lead. They had two really big chances. The first one was, I can't remember, I think it was Paqueta who crossed it. I can't remember exactly, but really nice cross for Souček. Souček headers it. It seems like it's going to go into the goal, into the bottom corner. But Alisson pulls off a fantastic save, saves Liverpool, and it doesn't turn into a goal. And then pretty soon after that, Antonio gets another. This was a great cross from, once again, I can't remember exactly who crossed it. It might have been Soufal, who looks really attacking for West Ham as well. But Antonio, just a terrible heading attempt. And especially, I knew this was going to happen. He was going to have one of his worst games of the season after he had those comments about West Ham finishing higher than Liverpool. Antonio, I love the guy. He's one of my favorite West Ham players of all time for certain, and one of my favorite players of all time as a West Ham fan. But he sort of puts his foot in his mouth too many times with his weird comments and stuff, but that's partly why I love him as well. But either way, Liverpool took the lead through a penalty for Mo Salah. Pretty much their first chance of the game after 14 minutes. Luis Diaz had the ball on the wing, passed it inside. The ball sort of awkwardly, luckily, I guess, for Liverpool, hits Darwin on the side of his foot, and the ball ends up perfectly with Salah. Salah easily goes past Nayef Aguerd, who brings down Salah kind of clumsily. Aguerd, as we'll get to the second goal as well, once again, kind of the cause of West Ham conceding goals. So I'm not sure about Aguerd going forward in terms of starting for West Ham. I know he's held in high regard amongst other fans, but personally, as someone who watches West Ham every week, he just makes too many mistakes. At times, he looks like the Rolls-Royce type of defender that we keep talking about, who makes brilliant tackles and has really good ball playing qualities as well. But he just makes too many mistakes for my liking. But either way, here's a penalty. Salah blasts it into the goal, but then Bowen gets a goal back for West Ham right before the half, I think, or at least in the 35th minute or something. Once again, nice cross from Koufal. Really good attack from West Ham again. West Ham have some beautiful team goals this season, which is really not talked about enough. The way West Ham take their chances when they get them against these bigger teams, really nice to watch. And yeah, great cross, fantastic finish from Bowen, who is finishing his chances perfectly this season. He was one of the most wasteful players in the league last season, and that led to a kind of down FPL year. But this time around, Bowen looks really good. And now West Ham have Sheffield United in the next game. And as you can see from the scoreboard between Sheffield United and Newcastle, that could be a really nice game for a couple of the West Ham picks. But yeah, Bowen equalized for West Ham, but Liverpool got back into the game and got the win in the end. Jota scored the final goal, and the Darwin Núñez goal is also really nice. Alexis McAllister, as I'm saying there, midfield starting to click. Liverpool had a goal disallowed right before the half when Szoboszlai crossed it to Curtis Jones, who scored, but Curtis Jones was slightly offside. Then in the second half, brilliant pass from Alexis McAllister, the other standout midfielder from Liverpool. Perfect pass again over Aguerd, who sort of loses sight of the ball, like he sort of did against Man City as well for their 2-1 goal. But the ball goes to Núñez, who brilliantly finishes the pass from Alexis McAllister and scores again. Núñez keeps looking good when he gets starts, and it seems like he's going to be the starter going forward for Liverpool. So I think he's also a decent FPL pick when the fixtures turn for Liverpool. And then Jota scored from a set piece where Van Dijk headed it back, and Jota scored, as he usually does, Jota, when he gets the chance as well. So yeah, Liverpool starting to look good. West Ham had their chances early. After that, not the best performance West Ham. They are struggling against these bigger teams, but now as the fixtures turn better for West Ham, they're going to have some really enticing options, both in defense and in attack. You have Areola in goal, who is obviously the cheapest, or one of the cheapest goalkeepers, probably the cheapest starting goalkeeper, at least a secure starting goalkeeper, when we consider Matt Turner being under threat as a starting goalkeeper. Then you have Zouma in defense. I think he's going to be really good because of James Ward-Prowse and his set-piece delivery. And as you'll see from Sheffield United, he could definitely get some assists from set pieces. And we also have Bowen, who keeps scoring goals. So West Ham have some really good options if you want to look that way in terms of West Ham's fixtures coming up. Also a decent team to punt on, especially if you're wildcarding Gameweek 8, you can punt on West Ham against Sheffield United next game week, because as you can see, Sheffield United are not the best team. They are going to go down most likely. Sheffield United and Luton look like the teams to target, and that's what Newcastle did in just an absolute thrashing for Newcastle in total. Trippier, obviously the standout pick, 18 points for him, 3 assists. Newcastle actually had 8 different goal scorers in this game, which also is kind of insane. I'm not sure if that has been done ever in the Premier League. Someone should probably check that, but yeah, all around just great performance from Newcastle. The first goal was kind of controversial, to be honest. It looked like the ball was going out, but Gordon actually kept it in. But when he kept it in, or right before he kept it in, he sort of handballed it, and the handball rules are kind of different when it comes to attacking compared to defensive handballs, which is kind of strange, I guess. But yeah, I think the rule says that if a goal is coming directly after a handball, it should be disallowed regardless. So maybe it wasn't directly after, but Gordon sort of got a hold of the ball and passed it in to can't remember who scored the first goal now, Longstaff who scored. But yeah, it was still counted, but no one's going to talk about that because Newcastle just absolutely trashed Sheffield United in their own home. 8-0 in the end. Trippier, 2 nice assists from set pieces to the centre back, or the tall defenders, Botman and Byrne. No goals for Fabian Schär, so he's sort of the odd one out of the defenders, not getting a goal. Yeah, Trippier assist for them. He also had a nice assist for Wilson, which is even more, in terms of FPL, more telling, because everyone can get set piece assists here and there if they take set pieces, but being offensive and being right next to the box and crossing it in, like Trippier did for Wilson on the 4th goal, is sort of why you pay the big bucks for Trippier, because he can get those extra points. So yeah, 18 points for Trippier, who got subbed off and had the clean sheet banked after 68 minutes. Good for him, but yeah, all the other players also got a clean sheet because Sheffield United were kind of just disjointed and sort of fed up with the game, I guess, towards the end. Newcastle just kept scoring and scoring. Gordon scored, Bruno Guimaraes scored, and you also had Isak coming on and scoring as well. So just a brilliant game for Newcastle, and it's sort of just a nice reminder of the fact that Sheffield United are a really weak team that you should target. I think they hadn't lost the game by more than 1 goal before this game, but now I think this is sort of they're not going to lose 8-0 obviously every week, but I think it's a definite team to target. At the same time, Newcastle, they showed against Aston Villa in the opening game week as well, when they play a lesser team, not one of the big 6 teams, they can just absolutely thrash them, and that's what they did once again. And Trippier looked like a standout pick. The defenders, Botman and Byrne, scored. Byrne had a decent chance to score again, I think, in the second half as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, defensively they have some good picks, and offensively as well, I think they have some decent picks now, because I've always been worried about the rotation with Newcastle players, but in this game in particular, Anthony Gordon, once again, goal and an assist. And it seems like he's sort of nailed in the team. Because even last time around when Harvey Barnes played for Newcastle on the left wing, Gordon was shifted out right and got some chances there as well. So I think playing time is decent for Gordon. He's proving to be a really good player. I think he was player of the tournament in the under-21 tournament, in the under-21 Euros in the summer. So yeah, Gordon is just looking like a really good pick for Newcastle, and he's only like 5.6, 5.7 potentially now, 5.5, around that price. So I think Gordon, especially with the fixtures that Newcastle have, is a really good pick. And also Wilson, as you can see, the best performer in terms of non-penalty expected goal moment. It seems like Newcastle are going to play him in the league and Isak in sort of the Cups and Champions League going forward. And if that's the case, Wilson is a great pick. As we saw last season as well, even when Isak and Wilson were switching places, Wilson and Newcastle can score goals towards the end of the match. They don't care if they're up 4-0 or 5-0, as you can clearly see from this game. They can score the 6th, 7th, and 8th goal if they want to as well. So I think even if he comes on like Isak did and scored, I think Wilson is still a good pick. So yeah, I think Wilson especially, potentially Isak. I think Wilson is more the league type of player that they have, and Isak is going to play more in the Champions League. So I think Wilson is also a really good pick. So they have all the defenders to choose from: Trippier, Schär, Botman. They all look really good. Burn as well, you should mention as well, who actually had the captain's armband towards the end, it bodes well for his chances to play towards the end of the season, or when the rotation comes in terms of the Champions League and League Cup games and stuff as well. But yeah, all those defenders are really good. Gordon is really good, and Wilson's also a really good pick, I think, from Newcastle. And that's pretty much all the 10 games from this weekend. I talked extensively about all of them. I think this is actually my longest, I used to call this weekend walkthrough, but now it's the FPL eye test. Talked about pretty much every game in total for about an hour. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this content. For me, it's pretty fun to talk about. It's pretty easy to make the graphics, pretty easy to just talk, blabber about each game. So hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully you've stayed this whole time and listened to every word I said. But even if you haven't, if you've gotten to this point, whether you've skipped through or if you watched the whole video, thank you for watching. I'm going to try to ask you this time to like the video, see how many likes we can get. I don't know what the most likes I have from an FPL video so far, but let's try to get at least, 30 likes? Let's try something easy like that. So either way, that's been the FPL eye test for Game Week 6, and I look forward to giving you a lot more Game Week 7 videos this upcoming week. So subscribe as well if you haven't already. And with that, thank you and goodbye.